My story is called Which No Man Can Fathom. I scanned the crowd looking for a friendly face, or at least one that I knew. None of us had really ever been friendly, even in life. Maximus, I yelled, and the burly Roman who had been my undersergeant many years prior waved back at me through the thicket of helmets, spears, and unwashed curls that populated the shining marble hall in which we stood. Detritus, he said, shaking my hand with a loud clank of heavy gauntlets. Didn't take you very long, did it? Cursed Greeks held that hill until the last man took a sword to the eye. You were the last man, then? No, I killed the last man. We won the day. Then how did you get here? I carried the broken tip of an Athenian spear next to my heart for another year before it killed me. Praise Zeus, Detritus, Maximus said, earning himself a disagreeable glare from a beefy woman passing on a winged horse. A mighty death indeed. But you, Maximus, I answered, died many years ago on a Trojan beach surrounded by your slain. Tell me, where is this place? Maximus laughed heartily. The disagreeable gentleman there in the horned helmet tells me this is Valhalla, where all great warriors are brought who die mighty deaths on the field of honor. Come, let me introduce you. And Maximus led me around the great marble hall, introducing me to men of valor such as I had never known. Robert the Bruce, who slew many men to protect his people in the land of Scott. Alexander, who once held all of Asia in sway and insisted we call him the Great. A smallish man named Lee, who he said was unequaled in hand-to-hand combat. With all these I shook...
Bruce Lee!
I thought it was Civil War first too.
I thought it was Civil War.
Bruce Lee, all men.
With all these I shook a sweaty hand and marveled at their tales of physical prowess. Maximus, who is that in the corner? I said finally. That, Detritus, is Ted from accounting, Maximus said reverently. Well, I must hear his story, I said. Maximus was reluctant, for few dared approach the man from accounting. But he relented, and we greeted the small, tweedy man. Tell me, Ted from accounting, how came you hence to these mighty halls? And Ted told us the mighty tale of how he had slain the quarterly earnings and the deficits and such, and I was going to write more, but I didn't. 'Twas a mighty tale indeed, Maximus, I said as we left. Did you understand it? In truth, Detritus, none of us do. But he must have been a great warrior to have slain such great things which no man can fathom.
I like that.
That was really good.
That was a lot of fun.
You like that?
This is untitled because there wasn't enough time, as you'll see at the end. Not for me. I finished the story. It was Ted's fault. Valhalla. The sign stood there in bold black letters above the gun racks, bewildering Ted out of his mind. The Roman centurion next to him gave a snort of derision and threw a dirty look in his direction. Ted had not meant to end up in Valhalla. There was an ornithology meetup just on the other side of the complex, and he must have gotten off track during the tour and wandered in mistakenly. The centurion selected a fine 17th century musket and shouldered his way toward the door marked entertainment. Ted didn't even want to think about what might be behind that door. He shuddered and glanced around looking for any possible indication of an exit. Hey buddy, a voice rattled from the corner of the Val Latte shop, where the world's most fearsome warriors sipped delicately on the finest brews, supplemented by copious amounts of hard liquor and flavored with a red syrup that Ted didn't even want to ask too many questions about. Hi there, stammered Ted, hastily adding a sir when he noticed that the hulking 11th century cavalry archer was the one who had spoken. You look like you're lost there, the muscled Asian ventured. Really? Said Ted. How can you tell? His feet felt like they were being dipped into a bucket of ice water. The huge man just laughed and finished his caramel vodka macchiato. Then his face broke into an unexpectedly warm smile as he stood up and pointed down the corridor to the left. The Valhalla Conference Center is just down that way, if I remember right. Are you from the Birdwatchers meeting or from that Exterminators Expo? Sometimes I got the schedule all mixed up. Ted was dumbfounded, speechless, and was pretty sure he would need to change into tomorrow's pair of underwear a little early if he ever found his way back to his room. He managed to utter a strangled sound that he hoped would sound friendly as the warrior's ham-like hand steered him toward the narrow corridor. A few of you guys always seem to find your way back here each week. Good thing they keep one of us on alert. The girthy monster corridor.
Girthy.
Ted wondered if he would ever venture outside his house again after he crossed the threshold back into Volt Hollow. I can't read my own handwriting. Time to go learn about some yellow-bellied sapsuckers, he muttered to himself, mentally noting the small door that led to the place his nightmares now lived.
Nice! Finished with a flourish, I like it!
Mine's called Valhalla Wonderland. He didn't mean to become a warrior, but most warriors don't. But now, looking around the shiny halls of Valhalla's Welcome Center, he kind of wished he had tried a little bit harder to avoid the limelight. He was completely out of place. No sparkling armor, no flowing locks of hair. Ted was just Ted, balding, beer gut, and his best tie clip. He clutched his briefcase as the tour guide came close. "Ted!" said the guide. She was cheerful. Too cheerful, Ted thought, for a place like this. "Welcome! My name is Val. Valerie Curie. I'll be showing you to your condo, should you wish to remain here in our lovely Valhalla Wonderland." Ted grunted in an effort to show assent. It sort of sounded like a half-hearted burp, but Val didn't notice. She glided ahead of him, chipper and babbling. "We'll just exit our welcome center out the back, and straight ahead is the pool. Oh look, there's Mrs. Goldstein and her golden doodle. Hello, Lottie." Val turned back to whisper under her breath to Ted. Mrs. Goldstein once overthrew an entire army single-handedly felling an empire. She ended up here after a stray arrow nicked her kidney. Makes a mean peanut brittle. Ted nodded, staring at the sweet old lady and her dog. Val walked on, pointing out more residents to him. "That's Fred. He annoys everyone with his new bagpipe hobby, but he killed 48 men in one afternoon, and no one bothers him." "Oh, hello, Boris." Boris's skill was fire. "Mr. Larson over there by the petunias, he almost made it here 17 times before finally settling down." They were closing in on some less habitated condos. Ted hadn't said much on the stroll. Mostly he had just nodded and tried to look more formidable. But that was just the thing. These people didn't seem all that scary. They didn't look like warriors, not in the way Ted had expected. They looked normal. "Val, excuse me, sorry." Ted stopped her. She looked at him expectantly. "This might be a silly question, but why do they all look so average?" Val smiled. She seemed kind. Ted stopped feeling silly. "Well, I guess after a life of being everyone's avenger, being the heroes and the saviors, I guess people just want to be themselves." Val pointed ahead. "There's your place." They went in and looked around. "So," Val said, "what you think? You want to stay with us?" Ted weighed the decision. He looked at Val and smiled. "You know, I think I'll go back for a while. I'm not done being the hero yet. The world still needs an accountant." The end.
Whoa!
I have so many feels!
Oh, all the feels!
Good job.
The Man in the Corner. The wooden chandelier swung back and forth as the din escalated from a dull roar to a deafening scream. Saliva, blood, perspiration, and stench filled the room as the mighty wrestling match raged on. The Spartans had formed a tight ring of defense and faced outward as Thor and his Norse warriors hurled themselves headfirst at their Greek circle of protection. The Italian mafia swung their brass knuckles at the faces of their ninja adversaries, who nimbly evaded their clumsy assaults. Samurai swords clanked off of Roman armor. A good time was had by all. But in a dimly lit corner of the crowded, testosterone-laden court of Valhalla, a single man sat, quietly observing the melee. Legs crossed, arms folded over his chest, he gave no indication of distress or unease, though his dumpy khakis, lopsided tie, and pocket protector made him appear better suited for a cubicle than an epic brawl. Occasionally, a KGB member would pause his beating of a Somali pirate just long enough to gesture to the man, inviting him to join the fray, to make his contribution. The man smiled serenely, shook his head, waiting for the Russian to continue his bludgeoning of the outmatched pirate, who did so with alacrity. You see, the man had no need for such displays of physical dominance. Long ago, his place in the mythical fight club known as Valhalla had been cemented. Nowadays, he just liked to watch. Not everyone knew what he could do, the destruction he could bring upon his challengers, and every so often a newcomer to the hallowed court of Valhalla would challenge him. A young boy in a leather jacket, tattered jeans, and slicked back hair swaggered up to him, whipping out a switchblade. "Get up, old man." He smiled at the boy, holding eye contact but not saying a word. "I said get up!" A glob of snot and spit landed with a splat on the man's cheek. The smile vanished. Without breaking eye contact, the man stood, allowing the loogie to run down his face. The kid's expression morphed from cocky arrogance to sheer terror. "Who are you?" the boy asked in a hoarse whisper. "I'm Ted from Accountant." They were the last words that the boy ever heard. The end.
Oh, wow, that got dark.
Oh my god. Damn. Hits you like a brick wall, doesn't it?
But we still don't know what Ted did.
We don't.
We don't know why
I
Ted
think
is
that
there.
was the point.